Welcome to this lecture on Tailwind CSS, one of the most popular utility-first CSS frameworks used in modern web development. In this video, we're going to walk through what Tailwind CSS is, how to set it up using a CDN, and how to use its powerful layout and styling classes to build beautiful interfaces without writing traditional CSS from scratch. So, what exactly is Tailwind CSS? Unlike traditional CSS frameworks where you write long style sheets and define your own class names, Tailwind takes a utility-first approach. Instead of creating a custom class and writing CSS for it, you apply small, predefined utility classes directly in your HTML. Each class does one specific thing, like setting a color, a font size, or some padding. The key idea here is that each Tailwind class maps directly to a single CSS property and value. So instead of writing a whole CSS rule block, you just add the right class to your element. This makes your styling incredibly fast and keeps everything in one place, right in your HTML. Why would you choose Tailwind over writing vanilla CSS or using something like Bootstrap? First, it dramatically speeds up development because you're not context switching between HTML and CSS files. Second, it's fully customizable. You can define your own design system. And third, with proper configuration, Tailwind purges unused styles, so your final CSS file stays tiny. There are two main ways to get Tailwind CSS into your project. The first is using a CDN link. This is the quickest way to get started and is perfect for prototyping or learning. The second option is installing Tailwind through NPM as part of a build process, which gives you the full power of the framework, including purging unused CSS. We'll focus on the CDN approach first, since it's the most beginner-friendly. To get started with the CDN approach, head over to tailwindcss.com. Once you're on the site, look for the Get Started button. This will take you to the documentation, where you can find everything you need to begin using Tailwind in your project right away. Inside the documentation, you'll find a section called Play CDN. This gives you a single script tag that you can copy and paste directly into your HTML file. That one line is all you need to start using Tailwind classes in your project. No installation, no build tools, no configuration required. Here's what it looks like in practice. You take your standard HTML boilerplate file, your index.html, and inside the head section, you paste the Tailwind CDN script tag. Once that line is in your file and you open it in a browser, Tailwind is active. You can immediately start adding Tailwind utility classes to any element on the page. It really is just that one line. The browser loads the Tailwind CSS library from the CDN, and from that point on, every Tailwind utility class you write in your HTML will be recognized and applied. This is why the CDN method is so popular for learning. You get instant results without any setup overhead.
Let's understand how Tailwind classes actually work under the hood. When you write a class like TextRed500, Tailwind maps that to a specific CSS color value. Font bold maps to font weight 700. Text XL maps to a specific font size. These classes are already defined for you. You don't write the CSS yourself. You just use the class name and Tailwind handles the rest.
And this is what the browser renders. The text appears red, bold, and larger than normal. The beauty of the system is that the class names are intuitive and readable. Anyone looking at your HTML can immediately understand what styling is being applied just by reading the class names, without needing to hunt through a separate style sheet. Here's a direct comparison between vanilla CSS and Tailwind. With vanilla CSS, you define a class name in a separate style sheet, write all the CSS rules inside it, and then reference that class in your HTML. With Tailwind, there is no separate style sheet to write. The class names themselves carry all the styling information. This is what people mean when they say Tailwind eliminates the need to name things and manage a growing CSS file. Here's something important to understand. HTML tags like paragraph, bold, italic, anchor, and heading tags all have their own default browser styles. But when you use Tailwind, it resets most of those defaults. So a bold tag might not look bold, and an anchor tag might not show an underline, because Tailwind's base reset strips those out. This means you're in full control, but you need to explicitly add the styling you want. This CSS reset is called preflight in Tailwind. It normalizes styles across browsers and removes opinionated defaults, so you start from a clean slate. For example, anchor tags won't have their blue underline, and heading tags won't be large and bold by default. You add those styles back intentionally using Tailwind classes, giving you precise, predictable control over your design. Let's look at the most commonly used text styling classes in Tailwind.
To set a text color, you use text followed by a color name and a shade number, like text red 500. For font weight, font bold makes text bold. For size, classes like text XL, text 2XL, or text 4XL give you progressively larger text, with text 4XL being roughly 40 pixels. For underline, you literally write the class underline. It's that straightforward. Here you can see all those classes working together. The text is red from text red 500, bold from font bold, large from text 4XL, which is around 40 pixels, and underlined from the underline class. Notice how readable the HTML is. Each class name tells you exactly what it does, making your code self-documenting. Tailwind comes with a comprehensive built-in color system. Each color has a range of shades, from 100, which is very light, all the way to 900, which is very dark. So text red 100 would be a very pale red, while text red 900 would be a deep dark red. This system applies not just to text color, but also to backgrounds, borders, and more. You get a full design palette right out of the box. To apply a background color in Tailwind, you use the BG prefix followed by the color and shade, just like text colors. So BG blue 500 gives you a medium blue background, BG red 300 gives a lighter red, and BG green 700 gives a darker green. This consistent naming pattern across all property types is one of the things that makes Tailwind so easy to learn and remember. Now, let's talk about layout. Tailwind makes it very easy to control the width and height of elements. The class wFull sets an element to 100% width of its container. W1/2 sets it to 50%. W1/4 sets it to 25%. These fractional width classes are incredibly useful for building responsive column layouts without writing a single line of CSS. You can also use pixel-based width classes. Tailwind uses a spacing scale where each unit is 4 pixels, so W4 is 16 pixels, W8 is 32 pixels, and so on. This scale applies consistently across width, height, padding, and margin, so once you learn the scale, you can apply it everywhere in your layout. Padding and margin are controlled with the P and M prefixes. P4 adds padding of 16 pixels on all 4 sides. M4 adds margin of 16 pixels on all sides. You can also target specific sides. PT4 is padding top, PB4 is padding bottom, PL4 is padding left, and PR4 is padding right. This granular control lets you fine-tune spacing precisely without writing any custom CSS. Here's a practical example. A div with P4 has padding on all sides. MT10 adds a top margin of 40 pixels, pushing it away from whatever is above it, and BG Blue 200 gives it a light blue background. You can see how combining just a few classes creates a well-spaced, styled element with no CSS file needed. Let's put it all together and build a button. We use BG Blue 500 for the blue background, text white to make the text white, font bold to make it bold, PY2 for vertical padding, PX4 for horizontal padding, giving the button a nice shape, and rounded to add border radius for rounded corners. That's a fully styled, professional-looking button with just 6 utility classes. Each class has one job. That's the philosophy of Tailwind. PY2 means padding on the y-axis, top and bottom. PX4 means padding on the x-axis, left and right. This is much more precise than writing shorthand CSS padding, and it makes it very easy to adjust individual sides without touching the others. Once you internalize this pattern, building UI components becomes very fast. Tailwind also makes it easy to style images. wFull makes the image span the full width of its container. Rounded LG adds large rounded corners. Shadow MG adds a medium drop shadow. For profile pictures, rounded full makes the image a perfect circle, and object cover ensures the image fills its container without distortion, very useful when you have a fixed height set with H48 or similar. So let's talk about what makes Tailwind CSS fundamentally different from writing regular or vanilla CSS. In traditional CSS, every time you want to style something, say make text bold, you have to create a separate class, write out the property and value, and then apply that class in your HTML. It's a 2-step process every single time. With Tailwind, those classes are already defined for you. You don't write any CSS file at all. You just pick the utility class that describes exactly what you want, like font bold for bold text, or text white for white text, and you drop it directly into your HTML. The framework has already written the CSS behind the scenes. This is the core philosophy of Tailwind.
Instead of naming and defining your own classes, you compose styles from a large set of pre-built utilities. It speeds up development dramatically because the mental overhead of naming things and switching between files is almost entirely eliminated.
Before you can use Tailwind in a project, you need to include it. The quickest way to get started, especially for learning and experimenting, is through the Play CDN. You navigate to tailwindcss.com, click Get Started, and look for the Play CDN option. From there, you copy a single script tag and paste it into the head of your HTML file.
That one line is all it takes. Once that script tag is in your HTML head, your entire document has access to every Tailwind utility class. There's no installation, no build step, no configuration required. This makes it perfect for quickly prototyping or learning how Tailwind works. Let's look at some of the most common utility classes you'll use. For typography, if you want text to be bold, you use the class Font Bold. Tailwind translates this directly to Font Weight Bold in CSS. You want white text? Add text white. Want a large font size? Use text 2XL or text XL. Each class maps to exactly one CSS property and value. What's powerful here is the one-to-one mapping. Each Tailwind class is essentially a shorthand for a single CSS declaration. So when you read font bold, text white, text 2XL in your HTML, you immediately know exactly what styles are being applied. No need to hunt through a separate style sheet to find out what a custom class like my title actually does. Tailwind has a very intuitive system for spacing. When you want to add padding, instead of writing padding 10 pixels, 40 pixels in CSS, you use shorthand classes. PX controls horizontal padding, that's left and right. PY controls vertical padding, top and bottom. So PX10 gives you padding on the x-axis, and PY2 gives you padding on the y-axis. The numbers in Tailwind's spacing scale follow a consistent rule. Each unit equals 4 pixels. So if you write px10, that's 10 times 4, which equals 40 pixels of horizontal padding. This makes it easy to reason about spacing at a glance once you know the scale. It's predictable and consistent across your entire project. For background colors, Tailwind uses the BG prefix. So BG red 500 gives you a medium red background, and BG green 500 gives you a medium green. The number after the color name, like 500, represents the shade. Lower numbers are lighter, higher numbers are darker. This gives you a full palette without writing any color values yourself. And for border radius, which is what makes the corners of a button round, you simply add the class rounded. That applies a standard border radius. If you want more pronounced rounding, you can use rounded LG for large or rounded full for a completely pill-shaped element. Tailwind gives you these graduated options so you can fine-tune the look without touching CSS directly. One of Tailwind's most powerful features is how it handles responsive design. Instead of writing separate media queries in your CSS, you simply prefix any utility class with a breakpoint name. The default styles apply to mobile. When you add MD before a class, that style kicks in at medium screen sizes. LG applies at large screens. So in a single line of HTML, you can define how an element behaves across all screen sizes. Here, WA full means full width on mobile. MDW1/2 means half width on medium screens. LGW1/3 means 1/3 width on large screens. This mobile-first approach keeps your HTML expressive and eliminates the need for a separate responsive CSS file entirely. When working with images in a Tailwind project, the process starts with organizing your files properly. You create an images folder inside your project directory and place your image files there, for example, profile.png. Then, in your HTML, you reference that image using a relative path in the src attribute. Once the image is referenced, you style it entirely with Tailwind classes. W32 and H32 set the width and height to 128 pixels each, keeping the image square. Then, rounded full applies a border radius large enough to make the image appear as a perfect circle, which is a classic pattern for profile pictures. No CSS file needed at all. A practical tip when working with images: always rename your image files to something meaningful and easy to reference. Right-click the file in your File Explorer and choose Rename. Use lowercase letters and avoid spaces in the file name. This prevents broken paths in your HTML. Whatever name you give the file must match exactly what you write in the src attribute of your img tag. Let's bring it all together. Tailwind CSS is a utility-first framework. Instead of writing custom CSS, you apply pre-built classes directly in your HTML. Getting started is as simple as adding one CDN script tag. Spacing, color, typography, and borders all follow a consistent, predictable scale. And responsive design is built in through breakpoint prefixes. These fundamentals give you everything you need to build clean, professional interfaces efficiently.